On March 12, 2006, the cricket world witnessed one of the greatest ODI matches of all time and provided bowlers with enough nightmares to last a lifetime. But South Africa's mammoth world record chase in Joburg was almost over before it began. Here's the backstory to the most famous ODI of all time. Australia toured South Africa in March 2006 after the Proteas had spent the summer on Aussie shores. However, the South Africans had very little to show for that tour. They lost the Test Series 2-0 and won only 3 of their 8 ODIs, failing to make the Tri-Series final. So they desperately needed a change of fortunes when Australia visited them right after, and it came in the tour opening T20 International. It was played in Johannesburg, keep that in mind for later, and the Proteas fired with the bat. Led by captain Graeme Smith, who scored 89 not out, and Herschelle Gibbs, who scored 56 off 34 balls, South Africa broke through the 200 mark, just the third time that had happened in T20 internationals. With legendary paceman Glenn McGrath unavailable for the tour, the Aussie attack of Brett Lee, Nathan Bracken, Brad Hogg and newcomers Mick Lewis and Stuart Clark looked decidedly weaker. Australia fell short of South Africa's total by only 2 runs, but as it was 2006, the T20 was seen as just the warm-up for the 5-match ODI series to follow and not given too much importance. However, for South Africa it was hugely important. They had proved they could score big against and defeat Australia, especially at Joburg's Bull Ring. Let's fast forward a little bit. Australia found themselves 2-0 down in the best of 5 ODI series, but they drew level with the next 2 wins, including a thrilling 1-wicket win in the 4th ODI in Durban. It was a sensational match of cricket. Number 10 and 11 Clark and Lewis got the Aussies home with 5 balls to spare. But if cricket fans thought that was a scintillating match, they had no idea what was in store for the decider at the Wanderers. We arrive at Johannesburg 2 days later for the finale, 2-2 with 1 to play. Ricky Ponting wins the toss and chooses to bat on an absolute road. Gilchrist 55, Kadich 79, Hussey 81 and Ponting 164 off only 105 balls by the way, as Australia smashed a world record 4 for 434 off their 50 overs. Every time the bowlers would finish an over, we'd just run away because we wouldn't want to be called back by the captain to bowl again, South African quick Makaya Ntini told cricket.com.au. Ricky Ponting played the innings of a lifetime. His hooking and cutting was just spectacular, South African wicketkeeper Mark Boucher wrote in his autobiography, Through My Eyes. They had obliterated the previous record, held by Sri Lanka for their 5 for 389 against Kenya in the 1996 World Cup. So that's got to be it, right? Game over and series done. Boucher recalls hordes of fans leaving the ground at the innings break, and Sean Pollock remembers how the South Africans were feeling after the first 50 overs. When the boys came in at the innings break, it was just deathly silence. Everyone was so disappointed. Jacques Kallis was one of the last in, and he just walked in and said, "The bowlers have done their job, boys. I reckon they're 10 or 15 runs short." But to chase down close to 9 runs and over for 50 overs, someone has to go big. And that man for South Africa was Herschelle Gibbs. But he wasn't even meant to be picked in the starting 11. The night before the game, Gibbs settled in at the hotel bar. The day before the famous 438 ODI game against Australia at the Wanderers, I got totally wasted, Gibbs wrote in To The Point, his autobiography. And Australian Mike Hussey confirms the story. We were staying at the same hotel as the South Africans, and we went out for dinner quite early, and Herschelle was just sitting in the bar. When we came back 2 hours later, he was still sitting in exactly the same spot, and he was all over the place. That was at about 10 o'clock, and I remember going to bed, looking down from my floor, and he was still down there, yelling and screaming and calling stuff out. And I thought, far out. It was a day game, so we were up early the next day. He was drunk, recalls Makaya Ntini, and the South African team leaders were furious. Mickey Arthur tells the story that they found out about it the next day, and Mickey and Graeme Smith wanted to drop Herschelle from the team then and there. But they didn't have a replacement batsman, so they said to him, "This is not on. You're playing today because we've got no one else, but next series you're going to be punished because this is ridiculous." And it was true. Despite it being a home ODI, there would have been just a matter of hours between Arthur and Smith finding out and the match beginning, as it was not a day-night match. There was a lengthy meeting of team management over breakfast to decide whether Gibbs should be dropped from the match. He made it by the skin of his teeth. Boucher wrote in his book. And luckily Australia batted first, as Gibbs was half drunk at breakfast, according to the keeper. At least they batted second, so maybe he had a little bit of time to sober up, Hussey says. So with a record score to chase, the hungover Gibbs is in early after an early wicket and plays the innings of his life. 175 off 111 balls, including 21 fours and 7 sixes. Gibbs was just going crazy, despite the possibility of a suspension hanging over his head, commentator Mike Hazeman told cricket.com.au. He just played out of his skin. It was amazing. Sean Pollock, who missed the game through injury, remembers the match vividly. When Herschelle got going that day, sheesh, people weren't even celebrating sixes. Clapping for a six was like clapping for a single because of how quickly it was going. I just kept on going, still with the taste of Chardonnay in my mouth, Gibbs later told Wisden Cricket Monthly. South Africa reached the total with 1 ball remaining, with Boucher hitting the winning runs off Brett Lee. As the legend goes, Herschelle scored the runs, and as he was walking off, apparently he just looks up at Mickey Arthur and gives him a little wink and says, "There you go, Mickey, no worries." That just sums up Herschelle Gibbs, says Mike Hussey. As it turned out, there was no public disciplining of Gibbs for his behaviour the night before the match. He played in the Test series that followed, and he played in South Africa's next ODI, which was a few months later. So the lesson is, if you're going to be bad, make sure you're really, really good. Alright, I'm just going to put on a little outro here. Thank you so much for checking out my video. If you like this sort of content, please let me know in the comments. And until next time, see ya!